There's a moment before your anger becomes yours. You keep missing it. Sacred flame. TV, full script, block 1, hook. You read a message on your phone, 6 words, maybe 8. Something goes hot across your chest and up into your face, and your jaw sets before you have decided anything. 40 seconds later, you're pacing the kitchen, assembling the reply. Not writing it, assembling it. You are already 3 sentences into an argument that has not happened yet, and you are winning it. Now go back and find the exact instant you chose this. You cannot. You remember the message. You remember the pacing. You remember later the thing you said and the way their face changed. But the moment where you agreed to be angry is not in your memory at all, because as far as you can tell, it never happened. It felt like weather. It arrived. That is the part almost everyone gets wrong, and it is not a small error. It is the reason nothing you have tried has worked, because there was a moment. There is one every single time. It is short and it is real, and you have been walking past it your entire life. And the reason you keep missing it is not that you are impatient or short-tempered or badly wired. The man who described that moment most precisely wrote about it while working inside the most dangerous house in his world. He was an advisor to an emperor. He had already survived one ruler whose rages killed people casually, and it nearly cost him his life. Years later, a second one ordered him to open his own veins, and he did. He wrote the definitive treatise on anger as a working document, addressed to his own brother, by a man who had to sit in rooms with the angriest people alive and not become them. What he laid out was not a lecture about self-control. It was an anatomy. He argued that what you call anger is actually 3 separate events happening in sequence, that you have almost no power over the first, complete power over the second, and none at all over the third. This video is about that second one, where the moment sits, why it is so easy to walk past, and why the thing that arrives without your permission does not become yours until you do something specific, something you have been doing on reflex for so long that you no longer notice you are doing it. You have heard the verdict on this, and it comes in 2 versions that argue with each other while making the identical mistake. The first version says you have a temper, that this is a character trait, like being tall, short fuse, hot-headed, quick to anger, just like your father. The advice attached is to count to 10, to breathe, to walk away. Delivered by people who have never once explained what you're supposed to be doing during those 10 seconds, which is why counting has never worked for you. The second version says the opposite. Do not bottle it up. Let it out. Get it off your chest before it poisons you. Hit something. Say the thing. Better out than in. These sound like opposites. They are not. Both of them assume anger is a single object, a quantity of pressure inside you that either gets contained or gets released. One says hold the lid down. The other says lift it. Neither one asks the only question that matters, which is where the thing came from and at what point it became yours. Watch what happens when you try to use either one in a real moment. Someone says the specific sentence they know lands. You attempt the first version and go quiet, and the quiet is not calm. It is a container with something moving inside it, and everyone in the room can tell. Or you attempt the second version and say what you are feeling, and the saying does not empty you out. It sharpens you. You find the next thing to say, and it is better aimed than the last one. Neither result is a failure of technique. Both are what happens when the instructions are built on the wrong picture of what the thing is. And there is a third version, quieter and more damaging than either, which is the one you probably actually believe. That it happens to you. That the anger is simply there when you check, fully formed, and everything after that is damage control. If that were true, none of this would be your problem. It would be your weather. You would be a person standing in the rain. Notice how comfortable that is. Notice also that you do not fully believe it, because if you did, you would not be ashamed afterward. Nobody apologizes for a thunderstorm. You apologize because some part of you knows there was a place where you could have stepped off, and you cannot find it. And not being able to find it makes you feel crazy. You are not crazy. The place exists. It has been described in detail, and the description is about 2,000 years old. In the second book of his treatise on anger, Seneca does something no one had bothered to do before. He takes the thing apart and numbers the pieces. The first movement, he says, is involuntary, a preparation for the passion, a kind of warning signal. The heat in the face, the jolt, the quickening. He is explicit that reason cannot prevent this one. You do not get a vote. Other writers in his tradition compared it to blushing or to shivering when cold water hits your skin. It is not a decision. It is a body doing what a body does. The second movement is where everything changes. This one comes with an act of will, and he gives you the actual content of it. It is a sentence, something along the lines of, "I ought to be avenged since I have been harmed," or "This person ought to be punished since they have done wrong." The third movement has already lost control. It wants revenge, not if revenge is appropriate, but regardless, reason has been overthrown. Now hold those three side by side, because the structure is doing something specific. Movement one is not anger. This is the claim that changes the whole picture, and it is not a technicality. In the tradition Seneca is writing from, an emotion is a judgment, which means the flush of heat is a pre-emotion, an involuntary physical event that precedes any judgment at all. It has no verdict in it yet. Even the wisest person alive still gets it. The difference is not that they stop flushing. The difference is what they do half a second later. Movement 3 cannot be reasoned with, and he says so plainly. Once you are in it, argument is useless. Everyone knows this from the inside. You have been in movement 3 and heard the reasonable part of yourself talking from somewhere far away and kept going anyway. So there is exactly one place in the sequence where you have any leverage at all, and it is movement 2. Seneca states the asymmetry directly. We cannot avoid that first jolt with reason's help, but the second, being born of deliberation, is removed by deliberation. That is the moment in the title. It is not before the heat. The heat is not the enemy, and it is not yours to prevent. The moment sits after the heat and before the sentence, and it is small. It is not 10 seconds. It is closer to 1. Here is the test that shows movement. 2 is real, and you can run it against your own memory in about 15 seconds. A door slams behind you in a strong wind. You jump heart rate spikes, heat in the chest, the whole physical package. 2 seconds later, you are fine. You go back to what you were doing, and by evening you have forgotten it happened. Same door, same volume, same jump. Except this time, you look up and see that a person slammed it. Now you are angry, and you will still be angry in an hour. The physical event was identical. The wind produced exactly the same first movement as the person did. What the person added was not force, it was a target in the story. And the anger appeared only once you had a sentence to attach to it. That is what Seneca means when he defines anger as the desire to avenge a wrong, not pain, not shock, not heat, a desire for repayment, which requires you to have already decided 3 things: that something was done, that it was wrong, and that it was aimed. Every one of those is a judgment. Not one of them is a sensation. This is why you cannot be angry at a rock. It is why you cannot stay angry at a person once you learn, credibly, that they did not mean it. The heat may still be in your body, but the anger drains out through the hole in the story. And it is why the same event can enrage you on Tuesday and slide off you on Saturday. The event did not change. The sentence you wrote about it did. Go back to the message on your phone. What actually happened in that kitchen was not a rising tide of feeling. It was a sentence forming. They did that on purpose. Or, this is what they always do. Or the shortest and most common one. This is disrespect. That sentence is the assent. That is the moment your anger stopped being an event in your body and became a position you are now defending. And you wrote it so fast that it did not feel like writing. It felt like noticing. That is the whole difficulty in one line. Movement 2 doesn't present itself as a choice. It presents itself as perception. It does not feel like I have decided they meant it. It feels like they meant it. A fact about the world, already established, that you are merely responding to. There is a reason the moment is hard to find. That has nothing to do with speed, and this is the part most people would rather not sit through. Finding it costs you something. As long as the anger is automatic, it is innocent. It belongs to the same category as sneezing. You can be sorry about the damage, the way you would be sorry about knocking over a glass. Regrettable, not culpable. Nothing to answer for at the level of who you are. The instant you locate movement 2, that protection is gone. Because movement 2 is not a reflex. It is a decision you made in under a second, with information you had not checked. And the fact that you made it quickly does not make it less yours. It makes it faster. That is an expensive thing to know. It means the last 4 fights you had were not things that happened to you. It means that in each one, there was a point where you signed the document. So the mind does something clever, and it does it without telling you. It collapses movement 1 and movement 2 into a single memory. Afterward, when you retrace what happened, the heat and the verdict arrive together in the recollection, fused, indistinguishable. And the story you end up with is, I just lost it. Nobody is lying. The compression is real, and it happens to everyone. But look at what it buys you. It buys you a version of the event with no author in it, and it costs you the only leverage you had. This is why the standard advice fails so reliably. Counting to 10 is aimed at movement 3. It is damage control on a fire already burning. By the time you're counting, you have long since assented. You are just trying not to act on what you have already agreed to. That is why it feels like white knuckling, because it is. The actual intervention has to land in a window most people do not believe exists, doing something they have never been told to do, not calming down, not breathing, checking whether the sentence you just wrote about another human being is true. Something else follows from the three-part structure, and it explains the thing that has probably confused you most about your own anger. Not why it starts, why it lasts. You have been angry for 6 hours at something that took 4 seconds. You have been furious in the shower at a person who was not there, replaying a conversation from Thursday, saying the sharper thing you did not say at the time. Whatever fuel is doing that, it is not the original event. The original event ended. There is a specific claim about this from a completely different direction, and it needs to be stated precisely. Jill Bolt-Taylor is a neuroanatomist. In her account, the chemical component of an anger response surges through the body and is fully flushed from the bloodstream in less than 90 seconds. Her conclusion is the part that lands. If you are still angry after those 90 seconds have passed, it is because you have chosen to keep the circuit running. This is her observation from her own recovery rather than a settled experimental constant, and the exact number matters less than the shape of the claim. The shape is what should stop you. The physiology is brief. The persistence is not physiological, which means the 6 hours were not one emotion lasting 6 hours. They were movement too, executed again and again every time you returned to the sentence. Every replay in the shower is a fresh ascent. You are not remembering the anger, you are reissuing it. And because each reissue produces its own small first movement, the heat comes back, the jaw sets again. It feels like proof that the original injury is still live. The body confirms what the story asserts, and the story then points at the body as evidence. That loop can run for decades. Seneca's third movement is what happens when it runs long enough. The desire for repayment stops asking whether repayment is appropriate and simply wants it, whatever the cost. People restructure whole lives around a sentence they wrote in under a second and have re-signed every day since. The good news inside this is not small. If the persistence is assent rather than chemistry, then it is not a durable feature of your body. It is a decision with a very short shelf life that you keep renewing. There is a component of this that nobody says out loud, and until it is on the table, the loop makes no sense. If the shower argument were purely painful, you would stop. People do not voluntarily repeat something that only hurts. 6 hours of replaying a 4-second event is not the behavior of someone in distress. It is the behavior of someone getting something out of it. Aristotle names it directly in his definition, and it is the clause that gets dropped from every summary. He defines anger as an impulse, accompanied by pain, toward a visible revenge for a visible slight, directed without justification at you or at people connected to you. Then he adds that anger is always attended by a certain pleasure, the pleasure that comes from the expectation of revenge. It is agreeable, he says, to think that you will get what you are aiming at. He notes that people only feel it toward what seems attainable. And he quotes a line from an old poem calling anger sweeter than honey as it spreads through the chest. Sweeter than honey. That is not a description of suffering. So look again at what is actually happening in the shower. You are not stuck in pain. You are running a scene in which you say the perfect thing, and their face changes, and you are finally correctly understood. The imagined repayment is the reward. Aristotle points out that dwelling on revenge produces the same kind of pleasure as a dream does. And you can dwell on it indefinitely, because the imagined version never fails, which reframes the whole persistence problem. The reason you keep reissuing assent is not that you cannot let go. It is that letting go means giving up the scene where you win. And it explains why anger is so often the emotion of choice when the alternative is something worse. Underneath most long-running anger is a state with no reward attached at all, humiliation or fear or grief. Anger has a pleasure in it, those do not. Given a live choice between feeling powerless and feeling wronged, almost everyone takes wronged. That is not weakness, it is arithmetic. But it means the sentence you wrote in that first second was not neutral. It was the option that paid. By now, an objection has probably formed, and it is the most popular anger advice of the last 100 years. So it deserves a straight answer. If the anger is there, is it not healthier to discharge it? Get it out, hit the bag, say the thing. Let the pressure off, rather than sitting there re-signing the sentence. This has been tested directly, and the result is one of the cleaner reversals in the field. In 2002, Brad Bushman published a study in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin on exactly this question. Participants were deliberately angered. A stranger delivered harsh feedback on something they had written. Then they were split into 3 groups. One group hit a punching bag while thinking about the person who had angered them. A second group hit the punching bag while thinking about getting fit. A third group did nothing at all. Afterward, everyone got a chance to blast the person who had angered them with unpleasant noise. The venting group, the ones hitting the bag with the offender in mind, reported feeling the angriest. They were also the most aggressive. The group that sat and did nothing came out least angry and least aggressive of all. Doing nothing beat venting, not by a little, and in the exact opposite direction from what almost everyone believes. The framework explains why cleanly. Hitting a bag while thinking about someone is not a release. It is rehearsal. Every swing is another execution of movement 2, with the sentence held firmly in mind and the body recruited to confirm it. You are not draining the tank. You are practicing and getting better at it. There is an earlier finding from the same researcher that sharpens the point further. In 1999, Bushman, Roy Baumeister, and Angela Stack ran a study in which participants first read a fake news article. Some read one claiming that hitting an inanimate object is an effective way to vent anger. Others read one debunking it. Then everyone was angered and given access to a punching bag. The people who had read the pro-venting article were more eager to hit the bag. And afterward, they were more aggressive toward the person who had provoked them than those who had read the debunking, believing that venting works made them angrier. The belief did not just fail to help, the belief itself was part of the mechanism, because it authorized the rehearsal. Bushman's own summary of the whole line of research is blunt. Venting to reduce anger works about as well as using gasoline to put out a fire. Notice that the group that did nothing was not suppressing anything. They were not white-knuckling. They simply did not reissue. And in a matter of minutes, with no technique at all, the thing subsided on its own, which is precisely what a brief physiological event does when nobody keeps reauthorizing it. There is a serious objection to everything said so far, and it deserves its strongest form. Rather than a wave of the hand, because a lot of people hold it and some of them are right. The objection is that anger is useful, that it is what gets you off the floor, that people who never get angry get walked on, that injustice needs someone furious enough to move against it, and that a person with no capacity for rage is not calm, only compliant. Aristotle held a version of this. His position was that certain passions, used properly, function as weapons, that anger supplies force to courage, and that the goal is the right amount, aimed the right way, not elimination. Seneca knew that argument and answered it head on, and his answer is the most useful thing in the entire treatise. He grants the premise conditionally. Passions would work as weapons, he says, if they could be picked up and set down at the wielder's pleasure, the way you take up and lay aside an actual sword. But these particular weapons fight under their own command. They do not wait to be seized by the hand, and then the line that decides it. They possess a man rather than being possessed by him. That is the whole rebuttal, and it is not a moral claim. It is a claim about control. A tool you cannot put down is not a tool. It is a condition. Test it against your own record rather than in the abstract. Every time anger genuinely produced something good in your life, the boundary you finally set, the situation you refused to accept, ask whether it stopped when the job was done. Sometimes it did. Often it kept going past the point of usefulness, into the argument that lost you something, or the 6 months of rehearsal, or the version of you that everyone learned to be careful around. Seneca's alternative is not passivity, and this gets misread constantly. He argues that reason can do everything anger does. You can act decisively against a wrong, refuse mistreatment, impose a real consequence, without handing the controls to something that does not answer when called. His word for reason is that it is obedient, not sweeter than honey, obedient. Both men are looking at the same thing. One asks how much of it to keep. The other asks who is holding whom. There is a sentence you have almost certainly encountered on this subject, printed on posters and quoted in more or less every book about self-control. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. It is nearly always attributed to Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the camps. He does not appear to have written it. It is not in man's search for meaning. Researchers who have gone looking for an original source have not found one. No book, no essay, no lecture. The line seems to have entered wide circulation through Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where it is presented in connection with Frankl. And in 2008, writing a foreword to someone else's book, Covey said plainly that he had read those lines somewhere years earlier, had never noted the author, and had tried without success to identify who wrote them. So the single most quoted sentence about the gap between what happens to you and what you do about it is, as far as anyone can establish, orphaned. Sit with what that means practically. because it is not a trivia item. The idea is real. The gap is real. But the version that circulated is a slogan with nothing behind it. No mechanism, no anatomy, no instruction. It tells you a space exists. It does not tell you where the space is, what marks its beginning or its end, what is happening inside it, or what you are supposed to do while you are there. Which is exactly why you have read that line a dozen times, nodded, and remained precisely as reactive as before. Meanwhile, the description that does contain all of that, first movement, ascent, loss of control, and the specific claim that the middle one is the only place deliberation can reach, has been sitting in a treatise addressed to somebody's brother for 2,000 years, and almost nobody reads it. The slogan travelled because it was short and made you feel capable. The anatomy did not travel because it is longer and makes a demand. The demand is the useful part. None of this will stop the first movement. You will still go hot when the message arrives. That is not the target, and trying to make it the target is what has been exhausting you. Buy the delay and know what it is for. Seneca's central practical instruction is that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. And he is specific about the reason, which is the part that always gets dropped. You are not asking anger for forgiveness. You are asking it for time to form a correct judgment. That reframes the 10 seconds entirely. Counting fails because it has no job attached. Delay works when it has one. You are holding the verdict open, not holding yourself back. He adds that anger's first assaults are the heaviest, and that it relents if made to wait. Find the sentence. In the gap, one question, and it is not, am I overreacting? It is, what exactly am I claiming happened here? Force it into actual words. They did that deliberately. They think I am replaceable. This is disrespect. The sentence is always there, and it is always shorter and more absolute than you expect. Getting it into words is most of the work, because a claim you can see is a claim you can check. And the whole power of movement too comes from passing itself off as perception rather than assertion. Then check the one thing the sentence is built on, not the whole story. The load-bearing assumption, which is nearly always intent. Did they aim this at me? Most of the time, the honest answer is that you do not know and cannot and have already convicted. Seneca's advice runs the same way. Avoid suspicion and read other people's actions in the kindlier direction where two readings are available. Not because everyone deserves it, because the harsher reading is not more accurate. It just feels more alert. When you catch it late, stop re-signing. Most of the time, you will find the moment after you have already passed it. That is normal, and it is not a failure. Each replay is a new ascent, which means every replay is another chance to decline. The shower argument, the drive home, the version of the conversation where you say the better line. Those are not memory. They are renewals. You do not have to win the fight you are having with nobody. Run the day past yourself at night. Seneca describes a habit he took from his own teacher, a man named Sextius, who at the end of each day would put 3 questions to himself before sleep. What bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? Where are you better? Seneca says he took up the practice himself. He describes the specific conditions, the lamp out, his wife, long since used to the habit and gone quiet. And then going back through the whole day, everything said and done, hiding nothing from himself. His claim about the effect is the interesting part, and it is mechanical rather than moral. Anger becomes gentler and easier to govern, he says, when it knows it will have to appear before a judge every single day. That is not a call for self-punishment, and if you turn it into one, you have made it useless. It is a way of raising the cost of a cheap sentence. Assent is instant and free, right up until the moment you know you will be reading it back, in your own words, before you sleep. Then it slows down, not because you are trying harder, but because you have started to notice yourself writing. Seneca did not write this as philosophy for a shelf. He wrote it as a working document, addressed to his brother, and he was not writing from a position of safety. He barely kept his life under one raging emperor and eventually lost it under a second. This was field notes from inside the worst possible room. Your anger is not a fact about your character. It is a sentence you write, very fast, about what another person meant. So if you have spent years looking for the moment and never found it, you were not failing at self-control. You were looking in the wrong place, before the heat, where there is nothing to find, instead of just after it, where the sentence gets written. That gap is not a space where you calm down. It is a space where you check what you just claimed. If this names something you have felt and never said, out loud, subscribe. Every week, we take apart one piece of ordinary experience that almost nobody names correctly. Until next time.